sounds like a villain from a James Bond movie, but this is actually what they're doing. And when you think about how they want to reorganize our entire economy, and you think, how can they take control of a free market economy like the United States? And the answer to that is Wall Street. And what they have done, the ESG codes you've heard about, environment, social, government, those three things tied together, and using the ESG codes and sustainable development, that companies that are producing products being traded on Wall Street have got to prove that they are sustainable or they will not be invested in. That's one of the Klaus Schwab's positions. And so you're going to start hearing more and more advertising about this is sustainable, and trying to prove so we can make sure that our product is marketed. And this is where all these corporations are now moving in that direction. And in fact, I ended up with a document recently that came from the United Nations. It's a new report, and it's a United Nations high-level expert group on the net zero emissions commitments of non-state entities. Non-state entities are basically businesses and voluntary organizations and so forth. And this whole report is about the drive to get businesses, global corporations and local businesses, to all lock into the net zero plan where they have no emissions whatsoever. Biden has already issued an executive order to the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, that they have to look into not only a corporation's emissions, but also all of their customers, all of their production processes, so forth, everything all under one control, controlled by the sustainable issue.
Well, Tom, I noticed that there are different mechanisms that they're using to promote this, and I'd like to bring two of them to the forefront. One is media, and one is education. And speaking of media, I saw Front Page Meg just reported on January 5, 2023. There was a column by Daniel Greenfield, and he indicated that green investors are paying the media to promote climate change. He reported that the Associated Press revealed last year it had scored some $8 million to promote claims of global warming. More than 24 journalists covering climate issues that the wire services then pick up and they plant them in newspapers around the country, in essence, like in your words, to terrify Americans into supporting green taxes and subsidies and, making all these changes. But the media being paid by these green funds, and I'm going to mention a couple corporations. On one side, there are climate funders like the Rockefeller Foundation, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, he reports, and even the Walton Family Foundation, among others. But the media has been a force that has been used to promote this agenda and being paid for it.
Behavior modification is number one, whether it's everything you just described or in the education system, to get people to all think alike, to think the same way. And the sustainable Trojan horse being pulled in, we voluntarily celebrate, we brought this in, and we're going to raise money and so forth to help bring all this about, and you better not stand up against this, because then you are a horrible person who doesn't care about the planet or anybody else. Selfish. That mindset is what they're putting in place. They have massive amounts of money. One of the examples I use a lot is the Environmental Grant Makers Association. They have billions of dollars, and if these powers that be want to stop some sort of development, they don't want to go through. Say, for example, you want to build a new hospital somewhere, and they don't want that to be done. They Environmental Grant Makers Association will take $1 million and create a new organization. They will discover endangered species there, some kind of horned toad something, that is endangered, and that's their habitat, and so you can't build there. And they start this whole process. They'll use the news media, and they'll use the money to buy politicians and everything else. This is the practice of what they do to put all this stuff in place.
Indeed, education is part of this. I'm going to play one more clip here from Klaus Schwab from World Economic Forum as he spoke about the Global Education Initiative, because the classroom, folks, is very much a part of this. Listen to this quote here from Klaus Schwab.
We put emphasis on what I said before, public-private partnerships, which we accompany. So when we define a project like our Global Educational Initiative, I just described it in a second, we have, under the leadership of Cisco and many other companies, practically all the big names, we try to revolutionize the educational system of Jordan, Egypt, and now Burundi, by working together with the local authorities. We work also together with UNESCO not only to equip the schools, but to retrain the teachers, to put the new curricula into place. So we work together with we accompany those companies. We do not, such a difference to the Clinton initiative, which mainly, and which is a good thing, which asks companies to pledge some money to make a commitment and some to come back and to report. We are with the initiative from the beginning to the end.
From the beginning to the end, talked about these public-private partnerships, Tom, and they are purposely indoctrinating students with this stuff by changing curriculum and re-educating teachers.
Yeah, well, actually, they've already done that, about 90%. Good teachers have left the education system in droves because they are told they have to teach in the way in behavior modification. And we already know about critical race theory and the fact that they don't teach academics. We now find that math is racist, and on and on and on. The education system has already been usurped this way, and we have an entire generation of children, and now up into their 20s and 30s in a lot of cases. The generation we have now coming up are going to be absolute psychotics. What they're teaching them or what they're making them believe, and it's the total destruction of the human mind.
Yes, and destroyers of humanity, folks, that is accompanying all of this as well. You are the enemy. Tom, we've talked about the problem here. Is there a solution?
Yeah, I fully believe there is, and as I said, they come out. I believe that they've moved out too quickly. I believe there's an arrogance, and they don't have all the people. Their brains changed, and there is resistance growing. And after 30 years of trying to warn about this, and speaking to a lot of disinterested audiences and people who don't believe it and so forth, that is changing. I am hearing from so many people today saying, "How did you know this? My gosh, what do we do about this?" And that's encouraging as people are beginning to wake up to it. I'm even hearing that a lot of kids in school are now beginning to question, what is this all about? They are not happy with what's happening in their futures, and that's very encouraging. This is why my whole focus over the last year and a half, a little more than that, has been organizing on the local level. And we're not going to change it by trying to go after Congress, and it's a good thing to get a good Congress if we can. Don't say we don't do that. But where you have the most influence in this country is at the local level.
Tom, let me interrupt you right there because we're 5 seconds from the break, and I'm going to take the break. We're going to come back and find out what do you mean by at the local level. How can people get engaged? At the same token, friends, I'd like to open our phone lines. If you have a question you'd like to ask of our guest today or a brief comment, our number 800-733-9829. That's 1-800-733-9829. Be ready to jot down a website as well for our guest today. We'll be back in 1 minute. This is Crosstalk coming your way from the VCY American Network.
When it comes to eternity, most people assume they will go to heaven thinking their good deeds will outweigh their bad, and God will allow them entrance. At most funerals, people will console one another saying they are in a better place. But how do you know that? How do you know if you will be in a better place? In the book, Are You Going to a Better Place?, author Richard Schmidt presents how you can know for sure that your sins are forgiven and you are on your way to heaven. See, after you die, there will be no negotiation with God. The scriptures provide the one way today that God's justice can be satisfied, guaranteeing that you will be in an eternal dwelling place with Him. One copy of this book is available for a donation of $10, 3 for $24, or 5 copies for a donation of $30. Call VCY America at 1-800-729-9829.
You're tuned to Crosstalk on VCY America. Our guest, Tom DeWeese, who is president of American Policy Council. And our lines are packed, so we'll get to calls here in just a few minutes. But leading into that break, we were asking Tom, what can people do? And Tom, you indicated that you are engaging people on a local level and stress the importance, though the national is important, but you stress the importance on a local level. So explain that, the how, and what people can do there on the local level.
Yeah, well, these forces that we're talking about here, these global forces, understand at the local level, this is how they're putting this in place. And what they're doing, we've been talking about these non-governmental organizations, these organizations that are bringing these public-private partnerships and so forth, they are bringing these plans into your city councilmen, your county commissioners, your state legislatures, and they are surrounding them, and they're bringing in grant money and everything, and eventually they begin to convince your local officials that this is the proper role of government. And they're not hearing from our side. Our side doesn't like government, so we don't want to be there. And this is what has to change, and this is what we're talking about across the country. Our local elected officials, right up to the state legislatures, legislature have much more power than even they understand they do. And we need to organize in a permanent infrastructure to fight back. What we do now is we are willy-nilly, and we don't, if something crazy comes up, we're all standing around saying, "You hear about this? You know what this is about? Where'd this come from?" By the time you ask all those questions, they've got it in place. If you have a permanent infrastructure, it's what I call a freedom pod, where you are doing research, you have people going to every single public meeting, just listening, watching what's happening. You'll be aware of what's coming up, who the players are, and then we need to put in place plans on how to bring that out, make these local officials feel personally responsible for the programs that they're helping put in place. If we can work to get them out of office, if we can, and focus there. Build a freedom pod in your community. If you succeed in your community, the next community is going to say, "How'd you do that?" And more people are going to get involved. This is what we're working on building. We put together a local activist handbook that has the details how to do that. I'm traveling around the country speaking with people, getting them involved in looking at this. And if we can start to do that and build in our own community, we can have an influence to stop this stuff. We can pass legislation that protects people's property rights. We can pass some legislation that stops some of these global corporations coming in and grabbing up massive amounts of land and converting it into this stuff. And there's just all kinds of things we can do if we're organized, but we've got to understand we've got to be involved.
Tom, give us your website if you would.
It's AmericanPolicy.org. And we've got, like I said, the handbook is on there. We've got a whole lot of articles with all the background information and to help you understand what's going on and what the targets are. We're there to help you organize.
AmericanPolicy.org. And friends, yes, attending those meetings, committee meetings and council meetings and school board meetings, but also we need more such individuals to run for these offices as well. So many run unopposed in these local elections, and you can make a tremendous difference there as well. Let's go to Tom in Port Wing, Wisconsin. Tom, you're on the air.
Yes, I appreciate those suggestions of things we can do, but it always seems like the story of David and Goliath. Goliath being the media. It's the print. It's television. It's radio. It's all of those things that are constantly pounding out the stories on climate change, or the environmentalists seem to have cornered the market on the media. Don't you think we need to find some place where we have a public forum that's big enough that we can actually debate these things? I have never in my life heard a scientific debate on climate change. Never. And I think we need to have some place to present our arguments, not to the people who believe that this stuff is all a bunch of, malarkey, but for those people who believe that climate change is real and we need to do all these things to prevent the world from spinning out of control.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I'm going to have our guest comment.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the reason you don't hear that debate is because they won't debate. I work with some really incredible experts on climate change who challenge into debates all the time. They won't debate them. And these guys have been cut off of funding for their projects. They've been cut out of magazines, science magazines, things like that. They've done that very effectively to silence our side. And one of the things that we're talking with people to do, because every time as I'm speaking and I mention the media, and I always joke, well, every eye in the place just rolled because everybody knows the media is so left-wing. Mm-hmm. We're talking with people about how to start their own media, and even if it's just taking maybe a flyer with some details on it and taking it door to door, let people know they're already victims. When people know they're victims, they become fierce fighters. And so there are ways we have to do this. There's a bottom line of organization that needs to be done, and we haven't done that. They have. That's what's got to change.
Thank you, Tom. We're going to move on to Dusty in Des Moines, Iowa. You're on the air.
Hi. I was curious as to what the end goals of these corporations and organizations are that are promoting false information of climate change and everything, and is it just monetary gain, or what is their end goal?
Thank you, Dusty. Tom, what is that end goal? Is it monetary or other?
It's a hard question to answer because it's so illogical. They're destroying their own industries in many cases. But you have many things going on here. These public-private partnerships we're talking about, this is these corporations getting involved in making policy that can help them get tax rebates, get them better, they can get the prime places to put their businesses, they can get legislation to put their competition out of business. So there's that, there's power. And playing with the big boys, and there are these guys who are moving into these corporations who have been completely indoctrinated to believe all of these lies. And so all of that is taking place, but all of it is leading towards disaster as they're killing their own industry.
So really, power and control, Tom, and what we're seeing is using the fear factor to gain that power, gain that control toward what they're calling the Great Reset, to totally reorganize society as we know it, to reorganize civilizations, to bring about global governance. That's all part of it as well.
Absolutely. They think they can rub shoulders with the big boys, they can be important, and get involved. What they don't understand is that if they prove themselves to be unnecessary, these guys eat their own. And nobody's safe in this once they get involved in it, and they need to learn that as well.
Thank you, Dusty. We're going to move to Tom in Virginia, Minnesota. You're on the air, Tom.
Yes, thank you, Jim and Tom, and very interesting topic. But just a couple comments. I worked as a forester for one of the state agencies, and this was kind of before the big climate change stuff came along, but it was sustainably sourced wood. I mean, sustainably sourced wood, and so they came up with these companies, FSC and Sustainable Forestry Initiative, SFI, and the agencies had to pay great money to these companies to have their wood certified. And it's just, and it really didn't do anything as far as the field level work. It was just kind of a joke. It just added more paperwork, but I see it was fishy at the time, I thought, and now I see what it's leading to. So that's my comment.
Thank you. And so, Tom, he's seen that for some time, and those adjectives that he used at the beginning, like checked, inspected, certified, authorized, that's all part of it.
Yeah, that's just a little bit like that. It sounds reasonable that, well, okay, we're going to have better quality and so forth. And these rules and regulations eventually destroy those industries or cut us out. As we were going through the whole pandemic thing, you remember one of the big things that was happening was that the price of plywood had skyrocketed for some reason all of a sudden. And we had shortages of things. And that all comes from, that's how they do it. A little bit of here, a little bit there, and then these little regulations.
And look what's happening to our food supplies. With the regulations there, and the price of eggs through the roof, and beef, and the food supplies, it's all connected together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's step by step. And I'm working right now with farmers in Idaho, South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota that are facing this carbon capture pipeline that is taking millions of acres of valuable farmland out of use. And let me tell you something I just learned yesterday. They have farmers there who are signing voluntary easements to getting money so they can allow this thing to go on their property. It just came out, Vanguard, one of the corporations putting this private thing together to take private property, they are saying that if we do block the pipeline, which I believe we can do, which is idiotic in the first place, taking CO2 out of the air and burying it in the ground, and if that happens, then they're going to take those voluntary easements that these people signed and claim that's our property. Now we'll sell that property, taking it right away from them. And this is one of the things they're doing. This is how evil they are.
Fred in Milwaukee, you're on the air.
Yes, I wanted to make a comment that the wisdom of all mankind is foolish insanity compared to the wisdom of God, and that to preach the gospel, 1 Corinthians 15:1-4, by which you are saved in season and out of season, needs to be preached more around the world. And I thank you for taking the call.
Thank you, Fred. Our phone number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. Jerry calling from Telford, Pennsylvania. Jerry, you're on the air.
Hello. I wanted to ask about, I never hear it discussed, how do you account for, with wind power, the different wind speeds? I mean, the wind blows at different rates of speed, and I don't even know what the optimum wind speed you'd need to generate enough electricity.
There isn't enough wind speed to generate enough electricity. It doesn't work. And they are now finding they're putting these wind towers out in the ocean, offshore, and they're finding out that's affecting the fish lives there. Every single thing they do with these things, with wind and solar, is damaging the environment in many, many ways, and it's not producing any energy. They're talking about the solar panels that if they get covered with snow, what do we do about that? Because they're not going to produce anything. And they've been talking about putting little heat generators on each panel to melt the snow off of it. Right. Well, that heat generator will take all the electricity that solar panel creates in the first place. So it's zero. This is the dumbest thing they have come up with, and they are destroying millions of acres of land. Underneath it is cement for infrastructure. Talk about paving the earth. They blame me for being the AstroTurf crowd that wants to pave the earth. No, I don't. They do, and that's exactly what they're doing with this.
Not to mention that, thank you for the call, not to mention the number of birds that are killed. And also, I just saw on Western Journal, a wind turbine in Northport, Michigan, broke off and crashed to the ground after strong winds caused it to spin out of control. And sometimes the wind is too strong, Tom, they cannot use these. So pretty amazing. Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back to more of your phone calls here at Crosstalk. Tom DeWeese is with us, his website, and you can get his email alerts and so forth at AmericanPolicy.org. AmericanPolicy.org. KRG. Back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewreport.com. 2023, folks, is going to be a great, horrible year. I know, sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Reality is, it'll be great for those of us that have a biblical worldview. This could be one of the finest hours for Christians, for the true church, ecclesia, called out ones. Why? Because this is a spiritual battle in a material world. And those of us that understand the times in light of the Bible and Bible prophecy, well, we can take what's common to the culture and turn it into a pulpit. Look how many people are willing to listen to us now when we talk about globalism. We talk about so many of the issues like Marxism and Islam. Many people today are willing to listen that once discounted us. The Bible is coming true. The stage is being set for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. Again, let's take what's common to the culture and turn it into a pulpit. As horrible things happen, the good news, we can proclaim the truth of the Bible. I'm Brandon House.
Tom DeWeese with us here today on Crosstalk. Again, his website, AmericanPolicy.org. AmericanPolicy.org. Tom, just before going back to the phone calls here, we hear these terms like the Great Reset, and we see this World Economic Forum, and we see what's happening out there in aligning nations together and so forth. Sometimes it's hard to personalize it. How does this impact me?
Yeah, we already talked about the investments on Wall Street and that sort of thing with Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America already working on those things. But you personally, what they're going to be watching is what you purchase and the kind of products that you buy. And this will help establish what your carbon footprint is. And if you have a low carbon footprint, if you're not helping with society, that can affect your own personal credit rating. And I often say to audiences when I'm speaking, how many of you have in your pocket right now one of those discount cards at the grocery where you get money off when you buy? They are also creating a file on what you buy. That can become part of that profile on you. One of the most interesting things that's being done right now is MasterCard is promoting a carbon limit credit card that quantifies the CO2 emissions generated from each transaction that you make. The card even comes with a monthly CO2 limit, and it shuts down charges if you exceed it. So these are all the ways that you personally will be affected. If your credit rating is lowered, you won't be able to get credit to buy a car, or you can't buy one anyway, probably, but a home, anything like that. It can literally cut you out of society because you are not operating in a sustainable way.
Let's get back to the calls here. Mac in Midway, Florida. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to hear Tom's voice on the air too. As I heard you discussing the windmills, I was thinking about Palm Springs and Central Texas, because I've been a frequent traveler out there, and it just surprised me to see those things there and the damage they're causing, especially in Palm Springs when there's hardly any turn a lot of times too. It's just shocking. The whole idea of this brand new year, and people wanting everything to get back to normalcy, that normalcy bias. It just gripes me to no end. And what do you do about it? You can't take people by the collar of their neck and shake them.
Well, I think that people are getting shaken now, and as I said before, I'm seeing more people who are becoming much more aware, and I find that very, very encouraging. We need to give them more background, more information, and again, talking about how it affects them personally is a major part of it, and then have a way for people to get involved and do something about it. A lot of people want to do something, but they don't know how to get started, and they don't think it's intimidating to try to do some of these things, and that's what we're going to try to help people do.
Look at thank you for the call. Look at all the individuals who had their thermostats limited, Tom, at a time when they needed air conditioning, and had them limited as a result of policies put into place.
Again, smart meters on people's homes. They're putting those on without the homeowner's permission, and they're telling them if you don't have this, we're going to shut off your power altogether. Talk about monopolies. And what alternative do we have to this? These are some of the ways they're putting this stuff in place. Absolutely.
Zoe is calling from Illinois. Champaign. Hi, Zoe. You're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I did want to point out, when people are voting, they need to look at who's funding the candidates they're voting for, not just what they say, because sometimes people can say anything. Oh, I'm for this or I'm for that. Oh, yeah, until when. But anyway, my thing I'm calling in about, and I don't know whether this is Tom's area, but the Chinese buying up all our farmland. How can we stop that?
Again, two things. First of all, what you're talking about, researching and how who's paying for these candidates and so forth. This is where you need that research team. You can find that out, and we we've got to quit being so polite. We've got to start naming names and telling people what's going on. And you only know that, you can only do that when you know what's going on. There is, as far as the China thing, and this is happening not only with China buying up all this land, but you also have corporations like BlackRock that are buying up massive amounts of land in cities and in rural areas, and they're converting that land to these policies and putting this stuff in place. You can have your city councilmen, county commissioners, state legislatures pass legislation that can say foreign countries can't buy the land here, or big corporations like that will have restrictions on how they can deal with the land, because this affects your neighborhood, it affects your own property, and so forth. There are ways to protect that. We're looking into legislation to do this, and I'm going to start spreading it out as we get it.
Some states are actually going. I mean, was it Governor Noem of South Dakota putting forth that? It's either Texas or Florida going that same direction. Great concern as to the Chinese acquisition of land.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a major thing. But that could be done at the local and the state level to stop it.
Thanks, Zoe. B in Scottsdale, Arizona. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi there.
Yes, you're on the air.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Go ahead.
I think I have a delay because I'm listening to the program. Okay, I'm in Arizona, and we were talking about local elections. And am I on air?
B, listen to me on your phone. Don't listen to your radio. Your radio is delayed.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We have tried here so much, and they just keep getting stolen from us. There are several groups of us. There are many, many people here trying constantly, and there's just nothing but corruption here in Arizona. You know, one or two candidates will get through, and then the other ones, you know, just the votes, they just don't get the votes, or the votes are overturned, or the votes don't get counted.
B, thank you so much. We're down to 30 seconds, so sorry for interrupting you, but Tom wants you to get a comment in before we close.
Yeah, I absolutely feel for you. I understand it. Do not give up. That's what they want you to do. But you've got to organize, and you can begin to watch these things and see who the players are, who's on the board of elections locally, what's their job, what are they doing? Are they doing anything to protect the ballots and so forth? You've got to build a cadre of people determined to watch everything they do and get involved in it. Don't give up.
Thank you for the call, and the closing music says we're out of time on the broadcast here today. We thank you for joining into Crosstalk. Tom DeWeese, our guest. The website, AmericanPolicy.org. AmericanPolicy.org. Tom, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And folks, I trust that you'll stay tuned to the program. And yes, as an alternative media, to get send a link of this program to others. Get a copy of the recording to send to others so that they may be informed as you have been today. God bless you. Thanks for joining us.